It's Wednesday, July 30th, and our weather is about to change quite a bit. And here's our severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center today. And we can see that we have a large marginal risk, which spans all the way up from parts of the Midwest, all the way into the very tip of the US in the Northeast and Maine. Then we also have a pretty elongated marginal risk, which spans all the way from southeastern Montana back into the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles, and pretty much all the way through the upper plains convergence zone. And then this would be instead of seeing our usual thing that we've been used to the past week of a lot of widespread severe weather up here in the northern plains. Now, although this isn't really a super big risk of severe weather and it's more conditional, it is going to affect almost 100 million people today. Now, this risk is mostly going to be fueled by the conditional threat for some damaging winds around 60 miles an hour, and those span our pretty much entire marginal risk area. Our hail threat is going to be quite a bit more condensed. It's going to be our entire marginal risk area up here in parts of the upper plains, and then even a sliver back here in the northeast associated with some troughing aloft. And then the Storm Prediction Center has not highlighted a specific tornado risk, but I do think there's a non-zero chance for possibly a tornado or two out here in the northeast, then even back here in parts of the Midwest as well today. Now, something that's not going to change a lot, but will change in the next week or so is going to be our extremely warm feels like temperatures. Now, instead of seeing them all the way up here into parts of the northern plains and northern Midwest, they're going to be a bit more consolidated down here in parts of the Mississippi River Valley, southern plains, and even still back in the southeast. The southeast isn't really going to get a break from low to high hundreds feels like temperatures. And then the Mississippi River Valley is going to be experiencing the same type of deal where they're also going to be experiencing a lot of low to high hundreds feels like temperatures as well today. Then as we go into the afternoon, they're going to persist until we go into the night hours where things will finally start to cool down. And there's also a widespread flooding risk today, which spans all the way from the upper plains through the southern plains, central plains, and then Midwest, and then back into the northeast, and even a large chunk of the southeast. This marginal risk for rainfall would be for the conditional threat of large swaths of 1 to 2 inches rain. Then our two slight risk, one down here in eastern New Mexico, Colorado, and the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle, then a run in the Midwest, would be for the conditional threat of anywhere between 1 to 4 inches of rainfall, with those 4-inch blotches being quite a bit more consolidated. Now, here's a look at what the radar could possibly look like as we go into today. And we're going to notice that this is mostly going to be an area of redevelopment from yesterday's storm. So there's going to be a bit of a low pressure system here moving along a stationary front with the help of a shortwave and some troughing moving through. And we're going to see that even in the morning hours, we're going to see the potential for some damaging winds and even possibly a spin-up weak tornado. And as we go into the afternoon, we're going to see additional storms along a bit of an outflow boundary or front stretching all the way back down into parts of central Missouri, then all the way back into parts of Indiana. Now, north of our outflow boundary, there is going to be some more stable air, so that threat for severe weather would be a bit less, but south of our outflow boundary or just stationary front is where we could see the highest potential for some severe storms. Now, the main threats with these would be damaging winds in excess of 60 miles an hour, some small hail, probably not much over an inch in diameter, and then I think there is going to be the threat for a couple of weak tornadoes out here in this area. And another area which I do definitely think we'll see severe weather is going to be up here in the upper plains today, stretching all the way from Wyoming back into parts of northeastern New Mexico and the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles, where the main threat with these storms are going to be some 60-mile-an-hour damaging gust and the possibility of some hail potentially being a bit larger than out in our Midwest area, even being around 1.5 inches in diameter. And these storms would initiate around the midday to early afternoon, and then they would last all the way until nightfall. And the last risk area, which is a bit more of a conditional risk currently, is in our northeastern risk area. We can see that there's actually not a lot of storms predicted to be out here. I, however, do definitely think there will be a storm or two because of the very conducive environment. We do have a cold front, a bit of a cold front, warm front, low pressure system complex, even up here in parts of New England. Then there's also going to be some flow aloft, which would also help to intensify or even initiate these storms as well. Now, the main threat with this would be from the early afternoon to late afternoon and even evening hours. And that's if storms do fire. Now, the main threat with these storms would be some damaging gusts. And the further north we go in our risk area, we could see some potentially small hail around an inch in diameter. Then I actually do think there's going to be the small risk for a tornado or two pretty much along this entire area as well. And here are our 500 millibar winds. So these are what help to organize our storms and also initiate them as well. We're going to notice a couple of things today which are going to help to initiate our storms. One is going to be a short wave out here in the Midwest, or just a kink in our jet stream, as well as flow aloft, which will help to intensify and initiate storms in our Midwestern and Ohio River Valley risk area today. And then our northeastern risk area, we are going to see some westerly flow, but one of the things possibly hindering our risk of seeing widespread severe weather out here is that our flow is going to be directly over top of our risk area, which does actually hinder lift in the atmosphere. And then the last thing is that in our upper plains convergence zone, we do have a bit of a ridge potentially squeezing some flow out here. Then we do have some troughing, bringing some flow out here as well. So that's another reason why we could see storms out there today. Now here's a look at our Midwest to Ohio River Valley risk area today along that outflow boundary. And immediately we're going to see why that tornado risk would be slightly higher along the outflow boundary. Our photograph is going to be a bit more curved. Our low level shear and helicity would be quite conducive for the threat of a couple of spin up tornadoes. Then even our organizing shear, which is normally lacking a little in these setups, looks to be quite good at 40 knots. So definitely a couple of organized, long-lasting severe storms out here in the Midwest to Ohio River Valley. We also have some wind veering, which will help to organize our storms. And then there is actually quite a bit of CAPE in our mid-level lapse rates are going to be 6.4 Celsius, decreasing per kilometer, which isn't great, but it isn't so low that hail would be a zero chance possibility. So I definitely do think we could see some small hail out here in the Midwest today. Now, the main thing is that we're going to have an extremely moist environment, 79 dew point, and a extremely unstable environment at anywhere between 4,500 to 5,000 CAPE. So extremely favorable for just general severe storms today. And then we also have a high precipitable water of 2.08 inches. Now, what this does is that it brings that conditional threat for some large swaths of rain, potentially even being 4 to 5 inches. And it also could bring that threat for some stronger downdrafts, so some damaging winds. Then our 3 CAPE is going to be nearing 250, which just makes that threat of severe weather even more. And it also brings that threat of a couple of spin up tornadoes today. Now, we do have some stable air near the surface, which could hinder our threat slightly for a couple of tornadoes, but I definitely do think the risk of all hazards of severe weather today is going to be in play out here in the Ohio River Valley and Midwest. Now, moving to the Northeast, we're going to see why there is a threat of severe weather out here today. We have a very elongated hodograph, so our low-level shear and our low-level helicity isn't going to be superb, but our bulk shear for some organized storms is going to be pretty okay at around 35 knots. So definitely some organized storms out here in the Northeast. Then there also could be some increased pockets of vorticity because these storms are going to likely be along a cold front, and our 3 CAPE is also going to be 210, which would bring that threat for a couple of spin up tornadoes up and just that general threat of severe weather as well. So I definitely do think there is a threat of maybe a weak spin up tornado out here today. Our lowest cloud level would be low enough to support that, and our low level lapse rates are going to be quite high as well, which will also support the threat for some damaging winds. Now, the main deal is that we have a very moist environment, once again, in a very unstable environment at around 4,500 CAPE, so just very favorable for general severe weather. We also have some dry air aloft, which could increase that threat of some damaging winds. Then there is a decent bit of CAPE up here near our freezing level. Then our mid-level lapse rates are about 7 Celsius decreasing per kilometer. So that is why there is that reason for some conditional hail, maybe being over 1 inch in diameter. So in the Northeast, there is actually a pretty conducive environment. And because there is going to be ample forcing with that cold front, I definitely do think there will be severe weather out here today. And also there's going to be absolutely zero capping in this region. So that is another reason why I definitely do think we will see some severe weather today, despite what the models are saying. Then the last environment we're going to look at is going to be in our upper plains area, where I do think there will be the threat of some damaging winds and some hail today. We have a pretty high mid-level lapse rate at 8.0 Celsius decreasing per kilometer. Then we have some CAPE up here near our freezing level. And then there is going to be some bulk shear. It's not going to be great, but because there is going to be that high pressure system and some troughing activity going on that will help to organize possibly a couple of storm clusters. We do have some dry air aloft, which would support that threat for some damaging winds. And our environment is going to be moist enough with that elevation. Then we also have a modestly unstable environment at around 2,500 Cape. So all things that would be favorable for severe weather today, plus our 3 Cape is going to be over 100. So another reason why I do think we could see some damaging gusts in excess of 60 miles an hour and even some hail around 1 to 1.5 inches in diameter out here in the upper plains today.